The SG Child Show is back for its 13th season. Join Sarah Bradford and the SG Child Show team as they explore the world of autism and share stories of hope and inspiration. This season, we're excited to bring you more autism summits featuring experts and advocates from around the world. Go to sjchilds.org to donate and to get more information. Congratulations on 2024's 20,000 downloads and 300 episodes.
Woohoo!
That's amazing.
Thank you so much. It's so exciting, right?
It really is.
Thank you. Yeah. It's it started in COVID, and it was such a great way for me to be able to connect and get out of my house virtually, if you will, and not feel so isolated, and really started recognizing the need for sharing information and sharing, this our lifestyles and our experiences. And there's something so cathartic about being able to take something from your story and help change their own lives. I think that is so special and wonderful. Thank you so much for being here today. Let's start out with an introduction. Please let us know a little bit about yourself and what brought you here.
Okay. Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm really honored to be here. And my name is Dr. Albert Bramante. I work with actors. I've been doing that for the past 22 years as a talent agent. And I also have been working alongside actors, and I have a PhD in psychology. And I work with all types of people. There are some people that are typical and some people are neurotypical or what you might call neurodivergent. And that might mean that they're in a different type of functioning in a sense. That doesn't mean in a limiting way. I don't even, I like kind of like the word neurodivergent versus on a spectrum when they describe people, because that kind of signifies that something is wrong. And I don't view that way. What I view it as, this person just processes information a bit differently, but they're still gifted. They're still able to do things, and we can learn a lot from them, and they can benefit. Society can benefit a lot from them.
I love that.
We just might have to tailor our approach to working with different types of people. And I've been also a college professor for over 20 years, so I've worked with thousands of students, and some that were already identified as being, sort of different, able, or neurodivergent. Others may not even have known it yet, went through the correct, haven't really faced it. Even for me, I'm in my late 40s, and I just been coming to the realization that I probably would have been diagnosed with ADHD, full-blown ADHD, if I was properly tested. I haven't. But I can tell you, a lot of this stuff now makes perfect sense in my life.
Isn't that amazing?
It's great. It's actually liberating. It's like, oh, this makes sense now. Okay. So I definitely think, a lot of times my ADD is in overdrive. If you look at my browser tab windows, I have sometimes up to 80 tabs open, which is, makes other people, when they look at my browser, almost run away. Like, wow. And now, could I work on that? Absolutely. I probably could maybe get down to 40 or 30. It's the way I've always worked. And for me, because a lot of people ask me, I wear a lot of different hats. I'm a talent agent, I'm a college professor, I'm an author, I'm a coach. And now looking back at it, like, people are like, how do you do it all? I'm like, maybe ADD? I don't know. So I can do a lot of different things, and I can, put my hand on a lot of different areas. So this is where I've always believed that we have to look at people for the true nature of them, and look at what gifts can they provide us. Because even if you look at people who have been, ADHD or autistic or any way you want to describe it, they a lot of times there's other areas of contribution that they've had. And I even would say some of the greatest thinkers of our time, Einstein or, even the major philosophers of our time might, although at the time, this is way before modern science thinking, I would guarantee that there's probably some type of neurodivergent activity within them because that's what helps them at the same time produce. And I was having a discussion with another group of people that works with actors and those actors, and I think sort of like to be that type of performer that can really tap into different roles and blend in, you almost have to have a sort of neurodivergent capability, like power in a sense. And I use power. That's not an accidental use of words because I do believe that like all of these are superpowers rather than limitations.
Absolutely. No, and I completely agree with that. I of what you said, in fact, and I have to tell you the best compliment I got last week from someone was a woman saying, "You are one of the most out there people I have ever met." And back in my childhood or whatever, my adolescence, that might not have been something I would have been proud of to hear that I was out there. However, now I know it is because I think outside the box and I don't have the parameters that people have to think in and those limits they put themselves in. I can think further than that.
And I'll even go a step further and kind of even say it's a little boring to think inside the box. Why would you want to just color within the lines when you can just be free? And so that's exciting to be, different. And I can identify because I was described, even growing up, like, oh, this kid is weird, referring to me, or he's weird. And I remember one time I was in seventh grade, and this girl ahead of me turned to my homeroom teacher and pointed to me, he's weird. Now, at that time, I was only 12 years old. I was a little insulted, by that. I had, my feelings hurt. Now I would have been like, thank you. I am weird. I could have told you that before you even said that. So I'm proud of the fact that I'm, might be considered weird by some. Because the one lesson that I've really learned that I wish I knew when I was back in my teens and early 20s is that no matter what we do, we're never going to be everyone's cup of tea. There's some people that we're just not going to resonate with. And that's okay. We're not meant to be everybody's cup of tea. But what we can do, and rather than maximizing trying to get those outliers, what I call those outliers that may not necessarily subscribe to our way of thinking, I'd rather focus on those that do. Let's focus our energy on those that celebrate us. So one of the biggest quotes that I know, and I borrowed from one of my mentors, is we need to be around people that celebrate us, not tolerate us.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I love the quote. I didn't originate it, but it's something that really sticks with me is that, we need to be with people that celebrate us, not tolerate us.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that might mean it's not always easy because I think just in general, especially when we're young, we want everyone to like us. We want to please everybody. I mean, I'm a recovering people pleaser. It's one of the things I would gladly say. I wanted people to like me. I wanted everyone to like me because I'm a good person. So I'm a good person, but I know that's an impossible feat to achieve. So I'm going to be me, and some people may like it. Some people may not. It's not my control, and it's not my concern anymore. So I think anybody listening to this, I'd say be you.
Yeah.
and be okay with being, look, you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but that's fine.
Yeah. My husband kind of came up with a quote, if you will, the other day when we were talking, and we were talking about creating communities and
Mhm.
how we kind of rally around those communities. And he said, I want them to know, and he is also ADHD as well as I am. And he said, write this down. So here, writing this down, and he said, we are not here to convince you. We're undeniable. And I love that. It's not,
I like that.
isn't that
Yeah.
great? Yeah, we're not here to convince you that our brains work differently. They do. You figure that out. Like, we're figuring it out for ourselves too. So,
Exactly. And, even coming from a teacher standpoint, I've said this proudly in my classes that I teach. I teach, like I said, those that are over 18 and post secondary, who may have come from teachers that may not have understood or went through all linear type of thinking where all students must learn the same way. That's not true. Everybody has their unique style. And as an educator, flexibility is important so that you have to, kind of incorporate different methods. So you can, obviously, there are people that learn in a linear fashion. Great, cater to those people. But then there's also those that learn a different route and learn a different way and march to a different drum. And so you have to come up with sometimes thinking outside the box. Now, I think for people that like us, it's easier to do that, to think outside the box. Always been that type. And one thing I kind of come to a realization early in my life, especially my work life, I'm better working for myself because of that. I work well with teams. I have even with jobs I've had, I have great relationship with coworkers and supervisors. But I think from those linear types, I might have been threatening because I always like, hey, why don't we do it this way? And I think if you're the type of employer that goes with the status quo, that may not be exactly the best thing to hear or to do. And so I think for this reason why I don't maybe not I'm not the best. I don't want to say, and I'm not saying this to knock myself, I'm not the best employee because I'm not gonna go, with the status quo. And I'm not built that way.
yeah.
And I'm great. I'm loyal, you want me to do what you want to, but I really have to almost do it my way.
Yeah.
And I'll still respect, of course, everything you want to do, but it has to. It's just ingrained in me. I have to do it my way, and that's why I kind of like one of the advantages of being a business owner and an entrepreneur is I get to do that. I get to do it my way. Am I going to make mistakes? Absolutely. Am I going to fall on my face? Absolutely. But it's still going to be my own way.
Hmm. And you learn best from those things, I think, too, when you are able to figure out your own areas that you made a wrong turn or took, whatever it almost is, I think, better for yourself to identify those things on your own and be able to correct them for yourself. And it gives you those tools in the future.
Yeah, I mean, one of the statements I've always kind of went with is there's no such thing as failure, only feedback.
Mm.
So, so the mistakes that we make, the failures that we make, is just feedback. Okay, well, that didn't work. Okay, we tried this, it didn't work. Okay, so what did I learn from this, and what can I do differently the next time? And rather than beating myself up. Now, what's more painful if we're talking about living a life is not doing things, not making mistakes because of fear or living in the comfort in your comfort zone. Because and I can back this up with actual science here. There's a lot of research that's found that most people when they're at the end of their life, and this is going to get a little deep here for a second, when at the end of their life, the biggest source of anguish and regret is not the mistakes or not the failures that they've made. It's the opportunities that they didn't take. It's the things that were presented to them and they didn't act on it out of fear, out of the status quo, out of staying comfortable. And it's too late now. And that is the biggest source of anguish and despair. Not the bonehead things you've done or the foolish things or that was ridiculous. It was more of the I didn't do this. I didn't, write that book. I didn't, take all these trips.
Yeah.
I didn't, pursue this dream because I was too comfortable. I was too concerned with what other people might think.
That's really rough too. I think that that's really hard. In fact, you have no idea even, but last week my father-in-law passed. And so we were literally at that precipice with him, in that this is it. Like, we have to now kind of deal with our lives moving forward and take that, though. I love that you said that right now, because that's something that maybe I need to take and resonate with and talk to my husband about and make sure that we're not missing out on any opportunities or not feeling any of those regrets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and that's why it's good to live our life on our own terms, in a sense, rather than worrying about what other people think. Now, of course, it's easier, said than done. We can talk about this all day long. It's harder to actually do it. To actually, okay, now let me implement it, because the one thing, and this is where I don't want to say it's controversial, but I get where it can get a little bit dicey, because a lot of times that might mean going against our family of origin.
Mm.
Our family of origin might, and I still believe that they may have the best intentions for us, but that doesn't mean that they're best for us or the best actions for us, because they are a lot of times operating out of their own programming, their own, and if they have their own trauma or abuse in life, it's going to get passed on. And I'm I started studying this recently, and it's kind of like a recent phenomenon, but there's something called generational trauma that I'm starting to really feel is important. So even the trauma that our grandparents and our great parents experience can come into us if we don't watch or don't take note of things. So this is why sometimes we just have to maybe not physically separate, but at least emotionally and mentally separate from our family of origin sometimes and do things our way, and do things that serve us, not them, because we're not, a lot of people are living their life in the shadow of their parents or the shadow of their family. I need to make them happy. No, you need to make yourself happy.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth?
It's not your concern whether or not your parents are happy. Now, yes, of course, when you're under 18, they're living under their roof, you follow their rules and their guidelines, of course. But when you're an adult, that's not your problem. That's not your concern anymore.
Yeah. Absolutely. Tell us what you do to kind of help when you have a client or whatever. What does that look like to help them kind of gain maybe a new mindset for themselves?
Well, I think the first thing is we have to kind of rewire what they have, specific thing that they have, or what specific concern that they have, or what specific, patterns that are running in their mind. And that's unique from client to client. So it's a little bit difficult to kind of like specifically say
Yeah,
what
there's
I would
not
do.
a framework, because you're right. Everybody's different.
and which is great. Now, of course, I've studied psychology, I've studied different coaching methodologies and different intervention models, and there's a lot of great stuff in there, and a lot of important stuff. But the important thing is that every person is unique in front of you, and I think if we're going to be coaching or guiding clients in any way, technique again is wonderful, but what's also more important is the person in front of you. Because I could be working with someone and rattling off techniques, which may have been worked over the test of time, but if it doesn't connect with the person in front of me, I'm just running techniques and just being almost sounding like stereo instruction. Like, well, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I'm just saying stuff now. I'm saying, I'm coming across like, saying some really wonderful things, but it's not resonating with you. So it's not helpful. But the first thing we need to do, I feel, is to dismantle any limiting beliefs first, and then start to gently reframe. Because usually when we're operating in a more deficient mind, deficient set, there's three issues that we're running into. We're deleting important information, like good thing, and focusing on the negative, or we're distorting the maybe we got some constructive criticism or some bad news or someone yelled at us or something critical, but our minds kind of blow it out of proportion, and then we generalize. I can't do anything right. Oh, you mean anything? So we have to challenge those three things. And I'll give you case in point. Let's say you're at work and you get 20 compliments from customers and from other coworkers, but maybe that one coworker, that one supervisor comes across and says something a little bit critical, a little bit biting, a little bit unpleasant. Now, what are most people going to focus on?
The
Most
one
people are going to
guy.
be focusing on that one remark, and they're going to dismiss all of the other good things that were said. And that you're operating from a limiting belief pattern when you're doing that. And you're not concerned about all the good things you've done. Now, not to say that there may not be a little bit of wisdom in that remark that you may not have liked or wanted to hear. So let's look at that. Well, are a lot of times when we get maybe insulted or hurt by something that's critical to us, a lot of times we might inadvertently blow that out of proportion.
Mhm.
Well, that means they don't like us, they're not happy with us. No, they never said that. They said something about the action we've done. So let's take away our personal emotions out of that and say, is there anything helpful in
Yeah.
that? Okay. Now maybe their method of delivery may have been not so good or not so positive. But what was the message in that? So, and then that doesn't, we blow that up. Of course, that they don't like me. No, they never said that.
I love that. I saw this post recently, and the girl was saying, it was Kaylin Partlow from the Netflix Love on the Spectrum. I just had her on the show too recently, and she said something great. She said, people need to start listening to the words that are said instead of hearing the words that weren't. And that's exactly what you're saying, is that exactly thing. Don't hear the words that weren't said. Listen to the words that were said.
Right. Because our brains will start to generalize and distort and then delete all the good things that just happened to us, all the important things.
Yeah.
And so we just say, oh, that person doesn't like me, or that person was so upset. They don't, no, they never said that. What and then if we take that, so that's what we mean by kind of like reframing and
Yeah.
kind of recalibrating and reprogramming. It's like, okay, what went wrong here? And then kind of reframe that and to get you get the person into thinking in a better frame of mind. Because really, that's the biggest thing with coaching: controlling our thoughts and controlling and reframing our beliefs. In
That
a sense,
perception.
it's a
Exactly.
perception. And the one thing that coaching will not do is change other people, in our lives. That's not going to happen. You're not going to change the way your parents or your friends or your coworkers communicate to you. Well, at certain levels, you can change how you respond to it and choose how you respond to it, but you're not going to change their behavior. That's not going to happen. So, how can you control your state? So, and ultimately, I think the biggest source of empowerment is to know that you have control over your feelings and you
Yeah.
control how you react. And that a lot of people are working on safe their feelings. Oh, I was so late to work and this driver made me mad. Hold on. No, they did. You made yourself mad. Well, the driver cut you off. Okay, they cut you off. That we can agree on. But you chose to get angry over that.
Yeah.
That was your choice. And I know some people when you first hear that, they're like, oh, they get annoyed when they hear that. But it's so empowering. It's like, well, look, I can choose how to react.
Yeah.
I don't have to be insulted by something you say.
And I think that it's hard for people to take accountability for their actions and their thoughts. And it's really hard for them to recognize that they are the driving force, the purpose, or the, catalyst for all of the actions that take place after they react in any way, good or bad.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. Accountability is really the key here. And that doesn't mean blame. So even in like situations where you're betrayed or when you're wronged, it's not about blaming yourself, but you're still responsible to some degree for that interaction.
Yeah.
And even in the situations where I've been wronged or I've been betrayed by people close to me, I don't blame myself because that was the action of somebody. But I contributed somehow to that situation. And that is liberating. I'm not blaming myself, and I'm not taking that, situation or playing the victim here. I don't advocate that at all.
Yeah.
What I'm advocating is taking responsibility. Okay, so even if somebody wronged you, you've been in this relationship or in this work situation where you're being bullied, where did you play a role into this? Did you and maybe just allowing that to happen and not setting boundaries?
Yep.
That's where the accountability comes in. Again, not blaming you. I'm talking about the accountability here. Where's that accountability? And so I think as coaches, that could be the greatest gift we can help our clients is develop their self accountability for the situations, the circumstances in their lives, to be accountable.
Yeah.
Because once you're accountable, then you can change. Then you can change how you respond, how you think, and how you behave.
Yeah.
And that is the most liberating thing I feel possible.
I love that. I agree 100%. What are you working on? Anything up and coming that you're going to be doing? Tell us about it.
Oh, great. Thank you. Well, I'm currently, developing my own podcast, at the point. I'm not ready to launch it yet or record episodes, but that should be like either late summer, early fall. But
Yeah.
it's about kind of like overcoming a limitation, developing more accountability, like what we,
Yeah.
talking about here. So authenticity. So that's something, definitely keep an eye out for. I'm also writing a second book, which is going to be on gaslighting and business and personal relationships. It's something that means a lot to me. I've been, involved in situations where I've been, been gaslit, and it's not fun. But I'm hoping to give a more empowering stance on how you can take control of your life.
Love that.
And and I'm also going to be developing like a group and individual coaching program,
Mhm.
which is going to be again taking accountability in your life, taking bold action in your life.
And do you have a website people can go to now to check everything out?
Sure, it's under construction, so there's going to be a lot added in the next, couple months. But you can go to albertbramante.com. You can also follow me on socials. I'm on LinkedIn, where I post a lot of content. Instagram, I post a lot of content there. And you can also check out my first book, which is called Rise Above the Script: Confronting Self-Doubt, Mastering Self-Sabotage for Performing Artists. Now, yes, the intended audience for a book is actors, and that's where I wrote the book in mind, but there's a lot of stuff in there that you can identify. Anybody who's dealing with self-doubt or imposter syndrome or pattern self-sabotage, I would definitely check that out on Amazon, and it's available as a paperback, a Kindle, and an audiobook.
Rise Above the Script. Make sure you go and check that out. Again, that is Albert Bramante, ALBERTBRAMANTE. For those of you listening, go to check out his website, and definitely check out the new book that's coming out about gaslighting. Super important topic to understand more about, learn how to set correct boundaries. Accountability, like you said, it's freedom. It's freedom. It's liberating. It's powerful to know you can set your own life up the way you want to. You just need to have the tools and use the tools that you have on a regular basis and a daily practice, if you will, to make sure that they're built up so that they work properly. Love that. Well, it's so nice to have you here today. I'm really glad we got to chat.
I am too. I'm really glad that you invited me, and I really appreciate it. This was a wonderful opportunity.
Thank you so much. It's really nice, and I'm looking forward to looking into the books at the website, and definitely into the new book when it comes out. And you're welcome. Let's have you back on to talk about it when that does happen. Please.
I'd love to come back. Definitely.
Yay! Invitation sent. Wonderful. Great. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
I look forward to staying in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.